great hour. We can have some questions. We've got a moderator. We've got some great folks, and also Amanda Waddell is going to be our moderator. So thank you for all the help. And Brian is just over here, and she's going to say a few words. And after this, it's going to be showtime. Welcome, everyone.
Yes, thanks, George. Hey, yeah, welcome everyone, what George said. Thank you to Black and Blues for hosting this evening. They're actually using it's hard to understand, so they opened up for us, and I'm super grateful. So please, they have awesome cocktails, mocktails. Please tip well and often, and show your gratitude for local business that's supporting us tonight. Let's see, yeah, I'm Jessica Schneider. I'm the editor of the Loveland Voice. Healing oddly. Tonight I want to just frame this up because we have a short, packed schedule. We really want to focus on elections, upcoming elections. How do you get involved? How do you get your friends involved? How do you maybe run? And what's going on in our city? We're going to be hearing from, and you can ask questions to, the League of Women Voters. Awesome. Who is here. So that's the first 15 minutes, and then we're going to be able to engage with our mayor, Jacki Marsh. And then Don Springer Cook is going to be here to speak from the Thompson School District Board. She's a board member. So, just a reminder, the Loveland Voice is a new online news magazine run by volunteers, led by women. We are gratefully supported by some folks on Patreon. And if you would like to help us grow our ability to do this work, please talk to me or one of our volunteers or Amanda to figure out how to do that. I forgot my signage, so anyway. Yeah, I think that's it really. Yeah, let's keep it focused. Let's stay kind. And Amanda is in charge. Thank you so much for being here. We'll get started.
Okay, we'll get through this quick. We're not going to, there's not gonna be speeches. This is questions and answers. This is a conversation. So I will try to like hurry you along if there you know becomes a long drawn out kind of speech, and as long as everything is respectful and kind, and you know, ask your questions. That's what they're here for. And thank you, Linda Thomas from the League of Women Voters. She's gonna go ahead and come up. They do such fantastic work and so much that we don't even know that they're doing. So one of the big things that I hear a lot of the community talk about is more people need to vote. Yes. More people need to understand what they're voting for. Yes. And more people need to run. Yes. So that's one of the reasons why we wanted to connect with the League of Women Voters, a non-partisan entity that cares about voting and elections and voting rights. So thank you, Linda. I'm going to let her talk for a few minutes. If you have any questions for her, just raise your hand.
Well, let's see. This is high enough, low enough.
What you need? Do you want to sit?
Well, yeah, I'd like to see. Thank you. All right.
Hey, Linda.
Do I know anybody? Anybody know me?
Yes.
You're right. So I want to thank Loveland Voice for inviting us, especially Amanda for inviting us today. I am from the League of Women Voters. My name is Linda Thomas. I do the voter registration for the League of Women Voters. I've been doing that for 6 years, since 2017. I want to tell you a little bit about the League. It was started in 1920. Right before women got the right to vote. They somehow knew that the amendment was going to be passed, and they wanted to be ready. The women wanted to be ready, so they knew how to register, how to vote, learn about candidates, learn about ballot issues, and we still do that today. We teach our members and we teach the public how to register, where to go to vote. We give you information about candidates and ballot issues, all nonpartisan. So we don't support or oppose any candidates or parties, but yet we're still political. We're political because we take a stand for or against some ballot issues, only if we study them. And you can always find our position on that if you go to the State League of Women Voters. We have at least 5 sub-teams in our voter service organization. Candidate forums, so we hold the forums for the local, the state will do the state ones. We have ballot issue researching and writing of the ballot issues. We look up the pros and the cons that groups or individuals come up with. And then we have ballot issue presentation, that's another team. And we have vote411.org, which I have a bunch of stuff on the table there. I'm going to refer you to it a little bit. Vote411.org invites all the candidates that are running for office to answer our questions that we think you would have wanted us to ask. Sometimes we ask for those questions from you. And then we put it on Vote 411. They log in, the candidate logs in, we give them an invitation, and they answer our questions. And you can compare them side by side. It's really a very convenient thing when you get your ballot in the mail. You got plenty of time to go to Vote 411. If you go too much earlier, it won't be ready. And then we have the last group, which is the group I work with, is voter registration. So those are our 5 sub-teams. On voter registration, we go lots of places. We go to high schools, colleges, farmers markets, food banks, and special events. We don't just do registration, though. We try to educate and give information about voting. So I want to give you a little example of what I might do if I were in a high school classroom right now. So one of the things we teach them is who can register. So anybody know who can register? What's one thing you know? Citizen. You have to be a U.S. citizen, born or naturalized. Yes, you have to be 18. If you have a green card, you are a legal resident, but you cannot vote. You can vote at 18, but you can pre-register at 16 and 17. So then you'll be ready, and when you turn 18, the ballot just comes right to you. You don't have to be thinking of it. By then they've left, they're leaving high school, going off to college. They don't have time to be thinking about voter registration. So we get them registered, pre-registered. We also tell them how to register. You can do it in person. You can go to 200 Oak Street and register there. You can do it with me today. I've got forms, I've got envelopes if you want to take it home and fill the form out at home. You can do it online. I've got a little bookmark. And in the middle of the bookmark is govotecolorado.gov, and that's where you can register online. You can check your registration there, make sure everything's cool. If you move, you can change your registration online. You don't have to go anywhere if you don't want to. We tell the students all this. We also tell them if they're going to be going out of state to school, that they can stay registered here if their family lives here, and the ballot could be sent to them wherever they're going to college at, even if it's all the way to California or Florida. We have Vote 411 is also on this. This is your candidate information on ballots and candidates, all nonpartisan. And then we have another thing over there on the table. It's called ballot tracks. Anybody sign up for that? Yes. All right. Well, then the rest of you got to get one of these. Ballot tracks, you can go to govotecolorado.gov. That's the Secretary of State website. You can sign up for it. And what you'll get is you say either you want to text, a call, or an email, and they will sign you up. You have to be already 18 and registered to do that. And then they will call you or text you or email you that they just mailed your ballot. Then when you turn it in, whether you mail it or drop it off, they say, we got it. And then the third thing they send you is they actually count it and tell you they counted it. I just got that last year. So they started this in 2020. It's a great way to make sure that your ballot is safe. And of course, when we're talking to high school students, we also tell them that how important their ballot is. I wanted to let you know that automatic voter registration started in 2020, but that was during COVID. So I don't know how the rollout is going across the state. We have noticed some high school students who have driver's license who aren't registered, yet their driver's license were issued since 2020. So we're looking into that. But if you go to the driver's license office or any state agency like to get Medicaid, whatever that information, if it's the same as what you get registered to vote, they will automatically send that information. You have to bring in proof of citizenship, especially for the driver's license. I know that for sure. And then they will send you a letter saying they checked you out, and they're going to get you registered unless you want to opt out. So it's an opt-out program. And you also can change your party affiliation because they're gonna make you unaffiliated to start, and then you can always change it. But you know, you can opt out of being registered anytime. I don't know why I'm saying that to you. I don't do that. All right, so we have automatic voter registration going on, which is really going to help those, especially those young students who just don't know the process. Then the ballot will come to them. And if they don't choose to not vote, makes me sad, but at least they got the ballot, right? All right, so voter turnout, they wanted us to talk about that. The presidential voting usually is 50 to 60% of eligible people turn out. It's pretty pitiful. But in 2020, we got 66.7% was the highest in over 100 years. But I mean, it's not to compare to like New Zealand or something, which is like 95% or something. So we still have a long way to go. Midterms are known to be a drop. People just vote in the presidential. I don't know why. Your local and your state offices, what they do, what they pass, they control your life way more than the federal and the presidential does. So you really should vote in all the elections. But in 2022, we just had in November, it dropped a little bit by about 3%. It was 47% turned out nationwide. In the midterms in 2018, it was 50%, so it dropped a little bit. Colorado, I'm sorry to say, usually they're second or third in the nation for turnout. They've been that way for about 20 years. But this last election in 2022, they ranked 6th. So I don't know what happened, but they dropped. I'm not sure why they dropped. Youth turnout is really improving. In the past 30 years, it's hovered around 20%. But in 2018, it was 36%. And Colorado actually beat the national average. We came in 3rd. We had 40% of our young people voting in 2018. So I just wanted to let you know that.
Hey, Linda, can I just ask one question
Sure.
and then we'll have to wrap it up? What can we do to help you guys get people registered to vote? What can just
Your family and friends, when there's an election coming up, send them information on how to get registered to vote. Take one of these bookmarks today and it's got all the information on there. You are having some elections coming up. You've got, nobody's here from outside of Loveland. You're all Loveland, right? Because the health district is May 2nd. But that's great, that's great. The next election is November 7th, your mayor, city council, your school board for Poudre and Thompson schools. And there probably is going to be some ballot issues, but encourage, when you're getting ready to vote, you got your ballot, and you just remember, when you got your ballot, encourage other people. They can register on the same day as election day. Okay, register and vote on election day.
same day?
Yeah,
Okay,
same day.
do you have a question?
I do.
What's your question?
How did what does the state require to be allowed
What does the state require to what?
for allow the legal registration?
Oh, I have to be trained because I'm a voter registration drive. So I have to be trained. I take a test every year in January. And then I have to train all my circulators, and I use the same information the state has on their website, but I add to it because I go into more depth. Because homeless people can register to vote, people with convictions can register to vote.
Yeah.
So I go into more detail with it. I didn't get to talk about election security, but I do have a thing that the league put out, but we have one of the safest systems in the nation. I've lived in 3 other states, and we have one of the best systems. We have a verifiable paper ballot. You can see how you voted, and then they do risk limiting audits every single time. And they make sure that the counting of the ballot, when they run it through the computer, matches the individual paper ballot. Not every state has that, so we have one of the best states.
Awesome. All right, thank you, Linda. Okay, Mayor Marsh, come on up.
Yeah, I think so, everybody can hear. So I want to thank Luz and Bruce. I want to thank the Loveland Boys, League of Women Voters, and all of you for being here tonight. So thank you. It's a Monday night. Thank you for being here. To tie on to what the League of Women Voters just said, both in 2019 and 2021 election cycles, I held like informational meetings and they're open to anybody. I'm sure I'll do it again this year. And all it is to bring people up to speed on some of the issues that we're dealing with. Because I know when I first ran, you don't have the breadth of knowledge and you're at a disadvantage running against an incumbent. So I will do that again, and anybody's welcome. They're just informational, and you get some of my opinion.
Can you give a little closer?
Oh, closer to the mic, okay, all right. So just what's coming up tomorrow night at City Council, we'll be going into executive session right at 8:30. It will be a joint study session with the full LURA board, which is your 9 city councilors and then the 4 additional members. That's to give us an update on negotiations about the master finance agreement, the proposed South Centerra URA, as well as I think additional incentives. The next big date would be April 10th, which is a LURA board meeting, which is open to the public. And then.
Where is that? Where's the board meeting at?
I believe it's at Chambers,
Chambers,
but I
okay.
assume it's at Chambers. And then April 18th is the big date as currently set, for the big vote on virtually everything. So those are kind of your big markers coming up.
Okay, first question?
Yeah, first question.
Don't be
Come on,
shy.
don't be shy.
Okay, hello. Oh, sorry.
Where the state is as far as fast tracking that new URA language.
I expect that you're gonna see a bill by Wednesday of this week. It's been moving along because Senator Marchman got permission to, do a late bill. That extended her deadline to April 18th. So she's been working behind the scenes with sponsors and bill language. And initially, I think there was some desire to maybe expand on that original bill, and it's back to just clarifying the grandfather clause that any land in a URA cannot be used in a new URA.
What's
Urban renewal, so in sort of the correct thing is an urban renewal authority is URA. And so you have one authority, which is now 13 of us, the 9 city council, and 4 additional. And then you have URA plan areas. Currently, there are 2 in downtown Loveland. There's the downtown Loveland URA plan, and then the Finley block. Finley's a very small, just a handful of buildings. And then you have the very large Centerra. So what Centerra is proposing is to take the 149 acre parcel that's across from Target, across Highway 34, that's currently in the Centerra URA plan area, take it out, which takes a vote of council, and then create a brand new URA, which gives a fresh 25 years of that URA plan area. So that's what we're looking at. There's also modifications with the master finance agreement, modifications with the public improvement fee. If they're successful with the new URA, those would come with their own master finance agreement, their own incentives, their own public improvement fee.
And the Loveland Voice, our website has a ton of resources about, like, Jessica did a 3-part interview with Mayor Marsh. Oh, 5-part, sorry. I think I missed 2 of them, sorry. And then just, there's a lot of information there, so go check that out. It's really, really good. Yeah. Okay, right over here, this.
Yeah.
If the county
Oh. No.
I'm sorry.
If the county tries to keep on deciding whether they want to approve the ag land for URA, what does that do to the schedule you just outlined?
So the current legislative session ends May 6th. So, Senator Marchman's goal is to have this, grandfathering clause clarified before that date. So my math says the county has 120 days to negotiate from when they were notified. And I believe they were notified right around January 15th, something like that. So they have till mid-May before the statute kind of says, well, if you haven't reached an agreement on tax sharing within 120 days, then you go into arbitration. So they have until mid-May. So if they slow that down, saying either way, whether they agree or don't agree, that gives Senator Marchman more time to get that bill passed.
Okay, wanna go ahead?
Thank you. Yes, so, Mayor Marsh, we know that in 2029, McWhinney's clock runs out. So far, Larimer has lost $37 million. Thompson School District has lost $72 million. Loveland has lost $17 million to this endeavor. When the clock runs out, what does Loveland expect to gain when we have that 13 panel, commission say, no, we're not gonna extend this, we're not gonna negotiate, we're not gonna say yes. What's in it for us?
Okay, and so let me clarify one thing. The school district gets backfill. So the state backfill. So it does lower the pool statewide for how much money is available for education. But the school district, in my understanding, having met with Gordon Jones, the chief financial officer a few months ago, the actual dollar loss to the school district every year is about 1.3 million. Everything else is backfilled for them.
So that just means the state fills in the money that we're losing because we're giving corporate welfare to this one entity.
Yeah, the state has per pupil minimums, I think it's around $9,500 per student right now. And so if your district, your area is not producing that, then the state backfills it to make sure you get to that per pupil minimum. And, Loveland is not the only URA area. There are many across the state, so it's not just us that's causing a drain on those folks.
That's not a guaranteed backfill though, because it's like budget stabilization factor. So you don't get the full backfill. It's up to the legislature each year to decide what they can do.
Yeah, and I think some of the concern has been in 2004, when this was approved, the different entities had no say. When the city of Loveland, the city council voted for this, it automatically took those funds from the other taxing entities. So this is a time when those entities have a say. And so will the state look differently at the backfill? I don't know. I don't think anybody. Yes.
I'm gonna just pause real quick. I'm gonna repeat what y'all are asking, so, because our Zoom participants want to be able to hear you. So if I'm repeating what you're saying, that's fine.
Oh, sorry.
No, it's okay. Jessica, just wait.
Okay. I mean, do you want to call on people?
Oh,
no.
Doesn't matter. Go ahead.
The risk for McMinney versus.
The risk, she's asking the risk for McWhinney versus the risk for the rest of us.
We've lived here 40-some years. We've known the markets are up, are down, and some developers have lost money because they can't. So if the market goes down and whatever McWhinney thinks is going to happen doesn't, who is going to pay for this? Where is the risk going to be? Because I think McWhinney's going to take its money and run.
So, in theory, the city has no liability, and in theory, the McWhinneys have no liability. So, so when you have an urban renewal plan area, it is going to divert your property taxes, and it could also, divert your sales tax. It depends on how it's written. You also have a metro district. So in the case of Centerra, it's metro districts 1 through 5. They're proposing metro districts on top of this. So even though it is officially the URA that is, the structure underneath it, all of that tax money right now, and don't want to give figures, but somewhere between, say, 11 and 19 million a year right now from all the taxing entities, that goes to pay the debt, right? Well, in 2029, when that runs out, you only have the metro fees. So right now, it's the diverted property taxes under the URA, Urban Renewal Plan Area bucket, and that's at least 11 million of it. And then it's the metro fees. In Centerra 1 through 5, it's the commercial property owners that should have the biggest portion of that. Their mills right now are 62 mills. But it's 62 mills on maybe what's the value of Macy's? What's the value of, Bed Bath and Beyond or Target? What's the value of that? Well, Target isn't in the URA. So once the URA expires in 2029, the revenue from the diverted property tax stops. And in theory, our master finance agreement stops, so the public improvement fee stops too. So what you're left with is currently it's just under 7 million a year in metro fees that are paying it. So it's your multifamily establishments, your business, your apartment complexes essentially, and your commercial businesses. I just asked, and I don't have it with me, I asked to find out what is the current debt. I believe Centerra 1 through 5, they said it's 257 million. And so whatever is left of that debt will be those property owners. So I'll give you an example because I like research. So if you look at, the marketplace, which is where you have Target and Chili's and IHOP and Bed Bath and Beyond and all of those things. There were 15 businesses there before Centerra was formed. So in 1998, you had Target built, right? So Target is not in the URA and it's not in the Metro District because it existed before any of those were formed. The property tax that Target pays is $200,000 a year. Now that's for 122,000 square foot building, a very large building, right? They have a lot of room to merchandise, a lot of room to carry product that people buy. So they're going to generate a lot of sales tax and whatnot. They're going to generate a lot of sales to cover their employees and all of that. PetSmart shares a wall, and PetSmart is to the west of Target if you're looking at the stores. PetSmart was built after the URA and after the Metro District. They're only 33,000 square feet, so they're about 1/4 the size of the building next to them. PetSmart pays $205,000 for property taxes because $90,000 is Metro fees. That $90,000 combined by all those commercial properties and some of the multifamily are what continues to pay that debt after they don't get the property tax. I mean, I'm being simplistic here, but hopefully it makes sense.
Does that make sense?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, who's next? Who has the next question? I saw Linda asked hers.
And we have a
Thanks,
gentleman here
June.
in the blue coat.
Yeah, go ahead.
We know that you opposed the URA for Centerra South. Could you tell us the most important reasons for opposing it? Then tell us how we can help defeat the URA for Centerra South, such as organizing.
Okay.
He's asking why Mayor Marsh opposes the URA and how the residents that also oppose could maybe help in that mission.
So a URA by definition is an urban renewal authority and plan. It was devised to stimulate revitalization of downtrodden parts of town, Chicago, Detroit, Los Angeles, things that were seeing a lot of crime, drug activity. They were costing the city money because you had to send the police and the fire, and they were vacant buildings and they were hurting the properties around them. So that's how this program got started in the 1950s. It was never intended to be farmlands. That was an abuse that I believe, Loveland led the charge with. And so it is not needed. So why am I opposed? First of all, it's an abuse of a perfectly legitimate program. And I'll compare it to Cleveland Station, kind of right behind you. If you remember the McKee Thrift Shop, the old, health center, vacant buildings, kind of giving us an ugly picture. I voted in favor of that because that to me was a good use of an urban renewal project. A farm is not. The other part is it's easier to develop than redevelop. So right now along Eisenhower, you have the Ford dealership. It built without a URA, without a Metro District. They had to bring all that infrastructure down Eisenhower going, from west to east. Now you have a developer, I don't know if I just drove up today, 3-story apartment buildings are going up. They're paying all the infrastructure, building the roads, they'll be building sidewalks, putting in the sewer, the stormwater, everything, because they are gonna make money when they have that developed. And it's, they plan commercial development along 34 and housing going south.
The housing going south goes almost to the edge of our soccer field, or northern soccer field. You could kick a soccer ball from that farthest north soccer ball and hit that building. That's how deep they're coming into that lot. It's the way it's always been done. People pay, development pays, and you have a more, you have a higher value property at the end. And you lease out those buildings if it's commercial, or you sell the homes if you're building homes. You lease out the apartments, that's how you make your money. So the way that, I would use him as an example, the Vandewater development, which is where you have Lowe's and Kohl's and Golden Corral and Mattress Firm and a bunch of them. Those did not use URA, so they're not taking the property tax. They're not taking the property tax from the school, the city, the county, the ambulance service, nothing. They the metro district. And so that is a very common way to do it, is to set up a metro district. So everybody gets all of their taxes. We get our full sales tax at Lowe's, we get our full property tax at Lowe's, but those property owners will be paying off the debt of that infrastructure 30, 40 years.
So how can residents help if they oppose it?
So, reach out to your county commissioners as they're gonna be voting. So right now, the way the law is, the other taxing entities that are gonna lose their money need to agree in writing. They need to agree in writing that this farmland is blighted and that they agree to do tax share, and they negotiate the terms of that. So, and the county has not said, so reach out to your county commissioners, and speak out to your city councilors, come to city council.
When does the county vote?
Well, that depends. I'm hoping they delay until the middle of May to give Janice's bill chat, time to go through. That says you can't use farmland that's been in a URA to create a new URA. So we're hoping for that. So what was that question again?
How can we help? And when do the county commissioners vote? So that's up in the air too.
That's up in the air.
Yeah.
It could be any day, they tell us,
Yeah.
or they could run out the clock.
Okay.
Yeah.
Is this potentially the reason why we withdrew their permit request from the county and put it into the city? Can you talk a little bit about that? I'm confused about that.
So if you think about the 149 acre parcel, it starts at Eisenhower and goes south to County Road 20. They were proposing on the southern eastern of that to do the fracking. I think it was 11 well paths, I think is what it was going to be. They have withdrawn that application. I would love for them to commit that they won't resubmit. I understand we're not ready to walk away from oil and gas. We're not there. We need battery storage and stuff. So I'm not opposed to oil and gas, just keep it away from where people play and live and work, and the churches and shopping centers. Just don't do it close to where human beings are hanging out. And that particular site is very close to our sports park, where you have kids out, you have people out. And going east of where that pad would be is our trailhead for an open lands trail, where there will be a parking lot and people will be gathering there. So I didn't like that location myself.
All right, we have time for one more question for Marsh. I'm thinking.
We actually have time for two.
Oh, 2 more.
13 minutes with here.
This will really help to clarify, because we understand that there is a 13-person panel that we need to reach out to. Could you please be specific and tell us who's on that 13-person panel and how do we reach out to them?
So 2 things. The city council is the one that will vote to remove that 149 acres, and the city council will vote to set up a new URA with that same 149 acres. Provided you have all taxing entities agree, right? The LURA board is the 9 city councilors plus a representative from the school board, which is Barbara Cruz, who's here tonight. Jody Shattuck McNally, who represents the county. Tammy Lynn, I'm not sure if I'm saying her name right. She's representing the special districts, and there's a conglomeration of them, but she's from Thompson Ambulance Service. And then my selection was former County Commissioner Steve Johnson, who was also a former legislator, and he was one of the people that sponsored House Bill in 1107 back in 2010. So where they come in is that even if you get this thing going, that board has to approve your financing, has to approve all of these agreements and everything. So it's not a done deal, just if the city were to do this on its own. You have to have cooperation from that board. That they have some person.
Yeah, go ahead.
I have a question about the executive session.
Yeah.
It's my understanding it's on the agenda for both the LURA and for the city council. So my question is, the citation is quite long. There's a lot being discussed.
Yeah.
It's categorized as a, who are you negotiating with that follow?
Okay. and-
She's asking, sorry, just with online, she's asking about the executive session for, that is tomorrow and who the negotiations are with.
So my understanding is it was an update on all of that. The city council typically is not part of the negotiation with, different entities, right? So my understanding was going to be an update, not just on negotiations, but the master finance agreement, both the current one and one being proposed for if they get a new URA. And so it originally was going to be just city council. And then they decided to bring in the other 4 members and make it a Loveland Urban Renewable Authority meeting.
So which part of that, by state law you can do in private? Because that's not a negotiation.
She's asking which part of that, why is that allowed with the state law of open meetings, right? Yeah.
So some things are under a non-disclosure agreement, and I'll refer you back to the same property back, I think, I want to say 2021, maybe 2020. The city was negotiating with the McWinnies purchasing 41 acres of that for potentially the Regional Tourism Authority water park. So, you have some private negotiations that go on. That it's just update, we can take no action in executive session. So it is just listening to where staff is and getting a feel for, do you want to continue pursuing this or, done. But we could not take any action. That would have to come out to a vote in front of the public.
So which part of the URA discussion needs to be private?
And I don't know until I get in it. My preference would be everything is done and open,
Right? Everything in the citation is about the URA. So my question is, why can't we hear this? Because it's our money. This is not a negotiation. Just
Yeah.
being updated is not a negotiation.
and I don't
Who
know.
decided this was executive session?
It's our attorneys and.
That's
But
City Attorney Moses
We
Carson.
could very well, we could very well hear tomorrow night if the county is in or out. That may come up tomorrow night, I don't know.
Okay, we're gonna do one more question real quick from this woman back here. Go ahead.
I actually with Together Colorado, and I remember I've been looking and saw that the Loveland Planning Commission in its advisory role totally advises against either affirming that it's urban renewal authority land and not wanting to enter into this. But they're only advisory.
Yeah.
And is it true that the city council has the absolute final word?
Yeah, they have, the city council is not, but I don't believe they have the authority to weigh in on whether it's urban, blight or not. But they do have the authority to say whether it meets our comprehensive plan. And I think in at least 4 areas, they said it did not. But again, it is advisory. It is advisory, so, the city council, the city council is not bound by it.
Are they planning to reapply?
I don't know.
Okay, we gotta wrap up with Mayor Marsh. Oh, you have sorry.
For-
6 minutes, sorry.
Okay,
Sorry.
okay.
Okay. Go ahead.
I'm I'm sure McWhittie's not giving land away. How much are we happy to pay for this land?
We're not buying the land. Most of the, and this is my take on it, and, I'd have to have somebody confirm it from the city. I believe in general, the McWhitties hold on to the land. And so, they will own, the buildings and stuff. That's not true like in the lakes of Centerra. I mean, that land is developed and then people buy their home. But in general, I think they tend to hang on to their land, but I may be wrong about that. I'm trying to replay some of the places. They did have their property at 2725 Rocky Mountain, that was their headquarters. They did sell that building and they did a lease back. So they do sell some, but I seem to remember in the loan documents, they told the potential bond from the company that they tend to hang on. That's where I think I'm getting that impression, that they tend to hang on to the property.
There's about 30 questions.
Okay.
We effectively gonna be acting as because it's if what's gonna happen if any of the base goes to the developer or it goes to New York, or back to the Florida, right? Back to the developer, right?
Talking about the property tax.
Property
Okay.
tax. If indeed we're gonna do that, shouldn't we understand why this developer is unable to get the financing he wants in order to do it on his own, the way other developers do? And follow up here. He's adding retail space to our city. And if we take the city as a whole, we have an amount of retail space out there that's going vacant,
Yeah.
more going vacant. As a
Yeah.
matter of fact. Why in the world would we think that adding more retail is going to help us? That's going to compete with the existing stuff over at the promenade shops for the closure. We're trying to revitalize the outlet mall. Don't know how successful that's going to be because it's totally. So why in the world are we adding more real estate when we don't know what it's going to cost to support this to start with? So that's a complicated question.
Yeah, so I think the need for grocery stores as well, everybody agrees with that. And to your original, why, I mean, I would just be putting myself in somebody else's shoes. If you think the city of Loveland is going to agree to this, you're gonna ask, right? The two properties to the west of this didn't ask, right?
Right.
So, I mean, I never fault anybody from asking, that's their right, and the McWhitties have the right to ask. I would fault, our city council and staff for giving away more than I think we need to. That's just me, not speaking for council, just my own
It's not
opinion.
just you.
And I believe that before I ran for office, I still believe it today. So, no harm in asking, but you have to, is it needed? And I don't think it is needed. You have infrastructure that's gonna go right up to the very edge of their property. You have two entities that Ford is now built, and the current development is going gangbusters. And you do have the potential to ask for a metro district. Those are the two meanings of metro district. So I personally don't think this is necessary. Again, it's for urban life. If you bring me a part of town that no developer is gonna wanna touch because they don't know if they're gonna be made whole at any point in the next 50 years. I mean, that takes an incentive to help them because it's gonna benefit. When you do like the downtown URA here, it's not one person that owns all of the 50 acres that are downtown. You have multiple people and businesses that are gonna benefit from removing that blight and bringing that part of town back to life and being a healthy generation for the employment of the people. That's not the case when, you're talking, 1,000 acres that one person, one entity owns, that is going to be almost the sole beneficiary.
So I'm thinking that the outlet malls would be considered an area of urban blight. Already in the URA.
No,
No?
not in the URA.
All right, so why, but still, why wouldn't we try to develop that instead of?
She's asking about the outlet malls and the urban blight there.
And that just recently sold, and I believe the person that bought it does have plans. I'm not not sorry what those plans are, but yeah, I
So
believe
it's
it's been purchased. If somebody is gonna do something with it. I personally think it would have made a great antique.
Grocery store. Okay, anything else for Mayor Marsh before we wrap up with her?
Big round of applause.
All right. Okay, we will end with Dawn from the school board, Dawn Springer Cook. So thanks, Dawn, for being here. Think about your questions, but we do have one online question that I want to start with. Breathe.
I'm ready.
Yeah.
Thank you for being here now.
Thanks for having me. Okay, I thought that this, did we lose Mike? Yeah, we lost Mike.
I will work on that.
Did I do that? Probably. I know, sorry, but we just aged ourselves as a collective, didn't we? By going there. Yeah. I'll share your mic with you.
Yeah.
Okay, I thought this was a good question.
Okay.
So the presentation that was made to the school board during its meeting, the meeting was by your chief financial officer. However, it sounded like legal advice, not financial advice. Did you also get legal advice from an attorney letting you know your legal options? If so, what was that legal advice? And if not, why not?
Wow, that is a good question.
Yeah.
So we as a board did not meet with our lawyers to do an executive session. However, what typically happens and happened in this case is that our staff handles that. So, they're the ones who are in the nuts and the bolts and the doing the work and the talking and the negotiating. So it makes sense that they're the ones who are getting the legal advice as they're going through that process. Everything was reviewed by legal before it was given to us. I do know that there were several questions that went back and forth to different people, and some of them also went to the lawyers because there were questions around the legality of it versus the finance of it, as that very astute question got to. And so all of that was done during and before our review.
Okay.
Great question.
Yes.
Dang it, someone brought their A game.
Yeah.
Doug, do you want to go next?
Sure. My question is, how does actually differ from prior?
Do you want to say that?
Yeah, so Doug is asking the difference between the prior and the current IGAs?
Yes.
And what does that mean?
Intergovernmental agreement.
Thank you.
Yeah, so the intergovernment agreement is basically anything that happens between the city and the school board or the police and the school board. In this case, it was between us and the URA. And so the current Centerra URA has been in place since early 2000s. That was done before the law. And so we, TSD, didn't have any voice in what was created. So what exists today in that area is that all tax money that would be allocated to the school district is put into a special fund and can only be used inside the geographic boundaries of Centerra. So what does that mean to us in practicality, right? For 20 years now, we have 2 schools that can use those funds, and only 2 schools. Mountain View High School and High Plains. And so that's a pretty small area for us to have schools in. So here's a very real situation that you guys might have heard of, which is that just a few weeks ago, when we had that really big cold snap, we had 2 schools where their boilers went out. One of them was an older school. It was a very expensive thing to fix. We can't touch the money that is out there in Centerra to make a repair like that at any other school except for those 2. So that fund is available to us because it can only be used on schools, but it can also only be used on capital expenses. So even in those 2 schools, we can't use it to do anything that has to do with our soft costs, which is a ton of things, our humans, our teachers and our principals and all of that. So what we're left with is only really construction costs, hard costs in those 2 schools. So my understanding is that when we were approached for the plan here, preliminary talks included, hey, we'd like to have another shiny school, because neighborhood schools are a great sell for developers, right? Everybody wants a neighborhood school. Everyone wants to be able to walk to their school. And so the developers want that again in the Centerra South area. We, on the other hand, don't know that that's a good idea. Currently isn't a good idea. We're expanding High Plains. That's got a lot of capacity. Very close by is also our Riverview out there right at Johnstown, so sort of the other direction, but right there. You've got Mountain View that has capacity. So on our list of priorities, building a new school in that area isn't there. It isn't going to happen for a long time, even with the growth that's planned. So, okay, does it make sense for us to have that?
Follow up, is there a differential in those? What's the, what was?
Ooh, I don't know.
Well, I'm sorry, Doug, can you restate
The
that?
mills.
Oh, the mills, he's asking the differentiation
You know what,
between the mills.
new ones. Start taking, or, guys, 27.
Right, that's a state thing. That's a state thing. So the state said that we all have to, every school district has to be at 27 to be, to have parity across the state. So if you were below 27 mills when that law went into effect, you had an incremental 1 mil per year until you get there. We are currently partway through that process. It's I think another 2 years before we get up to full 27. That impacts our entire district, by the way, and not just one area.
And the top ones. That include theirs. 44.
That is for something different. That's not the school district. That was for, that might be the case. So what Doug isn't asking that I think I should say right now is who does what, who's on first. I think part of the confusion about this is what was being agreed to and what wasn't when we did our vote a couple weeks ago. So what was in front of the school board was an intergovernmental agreement for if this URA happens at Centerra South to ensure that the money that is collected for taxes for schools isn't bound to that geographical area and is not controlled by the developer, unlike the current URA. So it's actually a significant improvement from what exists today, even though that's set to run out in 2029. In the meantime, they have the control of those funds. They have a control in wanting to spend it where they want to spend it. Ultimately, we are the ones who have to agree to that, but they have a lot of control. What we have in the new intergovernmental agreement is not bound to the geographic boundaries.
But the question then is, you are only going to get what is set by the, anything above farmland taxes will go to the developer, and you just get what is being given now.
I don't believe so.
That's how you raise work.
That's the thing. We, Thompson School District, said we want to keep our money, and that anything that would be raised that should be Thompson money is going back to Thompson School District to make the decision. All of it. All of it.
Is that in the IGA?
Correct, yes. I mean, it's lawyer speak, so I think it's 11 pages if I remember right, but that is what the agreement is.
Is there separate documentation? Because when I went through the school packet, and I read that, I think what George read, it specifically stated that anything above 27 mils, or that would be adjusted over time, I realized, went to the lower board. That's the way I read it. If there's a different document, I didn't see it. Could have been there. I just didn't see it.
There is only the one document. So those are good questions that I'd rather have legal and the chief financial officer who has all the experience that I don't have. However, what we were asked for, what was negotiated was what I just said.
But if that was negotiated, not to follow up here, but if that was negotiated, as I understand that the lower board is the one that makes the final decision on how the money is distributed, and that's what has to be negotiated in the future. And that hasn't happened yet, as far as I know. And I'm looking over, he's no longer the chair of the lower board, but our mayor is standing over there.
Right, that part hasn't happened yet. This was in preparation for the Laura review.
Then what you voted on wasn't actually a legal statement saying that's what's going to happen. You're waiting for the Laura board to make the final decision.
My understanding is that we have to have ours in place for the Laura board to review. We have to do what we did first. Can't be the other way around. The Laura board can't tell the district, this is what you're going to do. We had to go through the negotiation process for them to review that. And so with what you just said, there is a potential that the Laura board might come back and say, no, we want to renegotiate different terms or something else. But then that would be, you know, that'd be just a part of the process.
So the school board, the school district charges 44 mills on your property. Currently, you know, it's 24, they go to 27. That's the amount that will be backfilled. So unlike the county and the city, who don't get that back, the school board will get back 27. So the question is, what happens with the other 17? And that. Right, that's the money.
Okay, so I think that's fine. Can I just ask one real simple question?
Yeah.
So there was an immediate collective response.
Correct.
Right, after that meeting.
Yeah.
From your perspective, why do you think that there was that anger, that outrage on your vote and the majority vote?
Well, I think there was confusion on what we were voting for and what we
Okay.
weren't. We did have even other board members say that we were voting to whether we agree to the development and to the plan, which is not what we were voting on. We didn't have the power, we don't have the authority to do that. That it only sits with city council. And so I think people wanted this to stop with the school board because they thought we had the authority we don't have.
That makes sense.
Yeah, so what I was voting for is to make sure that we keep the school district money inside the school district and not in one subdivision. And what I was voting for, what the risk of us delaying was, and that was where my last minute decision made. The risk of us delaying was that we will be forced into mediation. 3 lawyers have told me that. And if we were forced into mediation, that costs us a lot of money with and time that gets sucked into that process. We know what the developer wants. It is not what we agreed to. So that's what could happen if we get forced into mediation. That's a
Right.
risk that I wasn't willing to take. So
Okay.
a good deal
Real
on the
quick.
table.
Yeah, so I think some of the anxiety over that vote that night was you didn't seem clear on what you were voting on, and other people didn't either. And it seemed like more people in the audience had better facts about what this is all about. And a lot of people, you know, paying the 44 mills and their property taxes really would like for all of it to stay here for the kids, not, you know, why split hairs over, you know, your buildings, what you can get. We don't want any of it going to those people, none of it. Because what if the state decides these people gambled with this money and gave it to developers and they don't back? You know, I mean,
That's what so just to clarify, what our agreement was is that we would not need the state backfill because we're going to get the tax money that's owed to Thompson with the IGA that's put in place. To be clear, anything that you read as confusion was not confusion. It was anger over the fact that there was misinformation being thrown out as truth. And that's not okay with me. And I was trying to make sure that I had clarity over the misinformation and the truth. That was what that was. I was angry that there was other people who were misrepresenting information.
Okay.
I don't have a question, I just have a statement. Being on the school board, for those of you that don't know, is a really, really difficult thing and they don't get paid. If you want to find out what people are thinking in this town and the direction a lot of people in this town would like our schools to go, I highly suggest you go to a school board meeting and listen to those people that are angry about the most ridiculous things and just see exactly the way they want to push this town. It's not great. So I highly encourage you to go to a school board.
Okay, well, we will end with Olivia Lowe. Thank you. Now, thank you so much, Linda, from the League of Women Voters, and again, Mayor Marsh and Dawn, thank you. Everybody please do. Thank you. No, thank you. I appreciate it. I had to ask the obvious questions, you know?
That's what a good facilitator does.
No,